to be learning our Blue Belt song for a recorder, and I'm going to be making a connection between our Blue Belt song and what we were learning about jazz when we were back in school. Seems so long ago now. I'm also going to be talking a little bit at the end about how we're going to connect what we're doing in music with your project-based learning that you're going to be doing in class. So check in for that later. All right, so Blue Belt on recorder. It's When the Saints Go Marching In, which happened to be a really popular song for jazz musicians, particularly out of New Orleans, where we know jazz is from. So there's two new notes in this song. We mostly have G, A, and B, but we're also going to add C, which is my thumb in the back and my middle finger. So if I set up for G, I'm going to leave my middle finger down but pick up these two. So I have thumb and back. This is for C. So I'm going to have to do G first, then pick those up. Make sure I'm not changing to cover a different hole. I don't want to cover that because that's just going to be B. Then for D, I pick up my thumb. For the first time, we get to remove our thumb. So that's going to be important that your right hand is positioned. So if I set up my fingers like I'm going to play like a low D before I play, and then I'm going to pick up everything except for my middle finger on top. So I'm going to be balancing this against my mouth because I can't pick up my fingers otherwise. Pick up everything. I use my thumb to balance here. That's it. But I would not really move my fingers because, you know, I'm going to try and keep my fingers close to the keys. So, G, A, and B still the same. C, and then D. So, for When the Saints Go Marching In, you will see 3 quarter notes, G, B, C, and then the D is really long. So, the D is a whole note, and then it's got that curved little line connecting it to a quarter note. What that means is I add them together. So a whole note gets 4 beats. Da. If I tie it, I connect it with that little line to a quarter note, I add 1 more because a quarter note gets 1 beat, and it's 5 beats long, which means I have to be thinking in my head. Each beat before that is just 1, 2, 3, and then I have to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ta 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 ta. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I see that little apostrophe or comma. It's a breath mark, so that tells me I need to breathe there. So I'm going to let you see. I do. So this one is tricky because of the rhythms, because even though they're not fast, you have to know quarter note gets 1 beat, half note gets 2 beats, whole note gets 4 beats, and when 2 notes are tied together, you add them together without using your tongue to articulate in between. So the whole song goes like this. The reason that started to sound a little weird, I realized my finger was slightly covering the hole. That's because I was being lazy. And that's why I corrected it at the end. You might also notice there was 1 note that's supposed to be 5 beats long that I cut short so that I could take a breath. And I don't feel guilty about that, as long as you can tell that I knew it was supposed to be long. So this song connects to what we were learning about in jazz because it was used a lot by jazz musicians as a familiar tune that they could learn. A lot of them knew it as singing anyway. So then they could use it and they could improvise on it like we did with Hot Cross Buns. This recording that I've attached down below in the link is of Louis Armstrong and his band playing When the Saints Go Marching In. You hear him play it on trumpet, you hear the main melody, just like I just played. It sounds really similar. You'll hear him sing the lyrics because it was a song that people learned to sing as well as play on instruments. And then he lets members of the band start improvising. And in your head, I want you to try and sing along When the Saints Go Marching In. Try and sing how it normally would go. And you'll hear that they're just kind of taking the outline of it and changing it up by either changing the melody by adding notes, playing with the rhythms, or you also hear when Louis Armstrong is playing at the end on his trumpet, you'll hear that third thing, which was to use sound effects. He does trills, so he's going playing between two notes, and you'll also hear at the end, you'll see it too, he's kind of shaking it, and it makes it sound a little bit shaky. That's called vibrato. So you hear all of these different elements that we talked about as part of improvisation. So I want you to listen to that, and it will help you understand how to play When the Saints Go Marching In, because you'll get it in your ear better. If you know how the song goes, the counting and the rhythms aren't too hard. If you don't and you're trying to count it, it's a little tricky. So I really recommend you listen to this one. The last thing I want to talk about is your project-based learning project. So you are going to be creating a colony on Mars where you get to decide everything. You get to start from scratch and say, if I got to decide who went to Mars and what the rules would be when we lived there, what would I create? And I know that you've talked in science about the ecosystems and that you've done the food chain, the food web, that everything needs certain things to survive, and so then for the animals to survive, they might need to eat plants, and the plants to survive, they need the sun, and those are all really important parts. You're also talking about colonization and laws and human rights, and what rights would you give people. The other thing I want you to consider is the culture. So, music is part of every culture in the world in one way or another. Some is as simple as drums, and others is really complex, as we see in the things we learn, like jazz or hip-hop. In addition to putting my When the Saints Go Marching In link at the bottom, I'm going to include links to two national anthems. The two national anthems I'm including are both from America. One is our official national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. Most of you have probably heard this song before. It gets played before sports games. It gets played all the time. And there has been some controversy around it with how we act during national anthem. So some of you might know about Colin Kaepernick and his kneeling for the national anthem and the controversy that created, which is a whole other issue. This is our official national anthem in America, the Star-Spangled Banner. I'm also including a link to Lift Every Voice and Sing, which you might remember you heard the sisters perform at our Martin Luther King Assembly. And this song, although it's not officially our national anthem, it was the song that was used to unite Black Americans during the 20th century, so the 1900s, as a song to give them hope and a song for them to really use to unify them as a culture and unify their cause in fighting for civil rights. So these are two national anthems, and I want you to think, first of all, if they have a message to them. So the Star-Spangled Banner was written during the War of 1812 by a guy who was sitting watching an invasion, basically. And then the message of Lift Every Voice and Sing was from a hymn written in, I want to say 1900, I might be wrong. And even though they're both kind of poetic, the way they talk, they don't say exactly what they're thinking. I want you to try and listen to what the message is. If your family identifies with another country, or even just for any reason, I want you to listen to any other national anthem that interests you too. There are some national anthems that are very literal and tell you exactly what they mean to say. Some of them are more poetic and don't tell you exactly what they mean. You have to infer their meaning. There are also national anthems that don't have any words at all and are only instrumental. So I want you to listen, I want you to think, and then as you start thinking about the culture you're going to design for your colony on Mars, think, what would you want your national song to be? If you had to choose one song to represent all the people of your colony that you would use before competing in sports events, that you would use at official ceremonies, what would it be? So, for example, at the Olympics, whoever wins the gold medal, they get to stand on a podium and everyone in the audience listens to their national anthem. And it's a moment of pride for people that they're representing their country. What would you want for your song that people would use to represent your colony? So, down below, there's 3 links. Louis Armstrong doing When the Saints Go Marching In. There's a link to the Star-Spangled Banner, and there's a link to Lift Every Voice and Sing. I'm going to add a 4th link, which is to my Google Drive, where I have the documents, so you can download When the Saints Go Marching In so that you can look at it without just having to pause the video. You'll also find other songs on there and some other things. So, I hope you're all healthy. I hope you're doing well. It's okay if you're missing school. It's okay if you're not, honestly. I just want you to know that I care about you, that I hope you're okay. I hope that you're safe and happy and fed. And if you need anything, reach out and let me know, even if it's not about music. In fact, if it's not about music, that's kind of almost better. I just want to know that you're okay. If you have anything you want to talk about, anything you want to ask, you can go ahead and shoot me an email or a message on Class Dojo. All right, have a great week. Bye.